Hi there, my name is Sarah Butler, and I am a graduate student at Grand Canyon University studying curriculum and instruction. I am also a third grade teacher who is currently stationed overseas in Okinawa, Japan, working for the Department of Defense schools. I'm here to talk to you today about the privilege of being an educator and some of the dispositions that we as educators should constantly be thinking about. Whenever I think about a professional educator, there are a ton of characteristics that come to mind, so it was really hard to narrow down to about 3 characteristics that I feel are extremely important. But the 3 characteristics that I think of mostly are: an educator should always be humble, approachable, and credible. For better or worse, educators are seen as role models and upstanding members of society. So it's important for us to portray these characteristics at all times, whether we are at school or if we're at the grocery store, because you just never know who is watching. Now, of course, most human resource departments do provide their new employees with a code of ethics, and I do think that this is a great starting point for educators to thumb through and just know what the expectations are in terms of being a professional educator. However, as Christians, I do think that it is important to remember at all times that we are ambassadors of Christ. In the New International Version of 2 Corinthians 5:20, it states that we are Christ's ambassadors, as though God is making his appeal through us. It is so important to remember this so that those thoughts guide all of our actions at all times, once again, whether we are in the classroom or out in public. Now, there are a few dispositions that I have clung to as an educator, and I really do attribute my successes and victories to as an educator. First and foremost, I feel that I am a very reflective teacher, sometimes to a fault, so much so that I lose my peace and sleep at night just because I'm thinking about how I can make lessons better and how I can reach my students so that they are learning and having fun while they are learning. Another disposition that I feel has greatly attributed to my success as a teacher is I strive very hard to make our classroom a very warm and inviting area. I want both my students and my parents to feel comfortable coming to me and just knowing that it's okay to make mistakes. We've had a huge push towards growth mindset and how important it is for children to know that making mistakes is a vital part of learning, and they're not going to make those mistakes if they do not feel comfortable within their learning environment. That being said, there are definitely some dispositions that I am constantly striving to better myself in. The first one is always being sensitive to individual student needs and pushing for progress, not perfection. I am very guilty of having high standards, and it is hard for me sometimes to focus on that progress, not perfection. Although I do make an effort to differentiate in all areas of learning, I sometimes just want my students to be the very best, and so I lose sight of that progress, not perfection. And I do let that Maslow's hierarchy of needs slip out of my mind sometimes, and I can't do that, which goes back to that being a reflective teacher part. There have been several times that I have reflected and realized that I did not extend the grace that I should have, and that's a tough thing to swallow. Another area that I would like to continue to improve in is encouraging active inquiry. Albert Einstein once said, "The important thing is not to stop questioning. Curiosity has its own reason for existing," and I absolutely agree with that statement. However, once again, as a teacher, sometimes I'm guilty of getting caught up in teaching a standard and objective, and I don't allow enough time for that inquiry to really happen. In closing, Nelson Mandela once said, "Education is the most powerful weapon which you can use to change the world," and I do absolutely believe that. So I will continue to reflect on these dispositions and work on becoming a better educator. Thank you for listening.